In a previous video, I showed you the start of how to use content-aware fills by referencing the fact that I made a panoramic image. Well, it's one thing to give you a panoramic image. It's quite another thing to show you how to make a panoramic image. So right here in Photoshop, if I go to File and Open, and I come out to my desktop to find my Chapter 3 folder, I have folder 3.6. Okay, it says make only one panoramic image. So I'm going to give you three choices. You can build a panoramic of Alcatraz. You can build a much bigger panoramic of the entire Grand Canyon, or you can build a simple panoramic of the Wizard of Oz. So just to show you here, I'm going to try the Wizard of Oz. But I'll start with that, but you can be as creative as you want. Try any one of these three. I'll use number 3 as an example. So the problem here is every one of these scenes was a long horizontal scene. So if I look at the Wizard of Oz and I open up all 5 of those photos, we can see that when I held my camera and took a photo, this is how much of the scene my camera lens could capture. Okay, then I moved my head slightly to the left. I found the lion. Then I moved my head slightly to the left. Then I found the scarecrow. Then I found Dorothy and the Tin Man. And then there was even more trees. But I had to take 5 separate photos just to capture that entire scene because it was so wide. And you'll notice right here, if I go to File and Open, and I'll come down to Chapter 3 again, folder 3.6, Alcatraz was the same thing. The island was so wide, when I took a photo of the left side of the island, this is how much I could see. Then I slightly turned my head to the right. Then I slightly turned my head to the right, and then I slightly turned my head to the right. The island was so wide, I could only see this much with my camera. And just to show you here, if I went to File and Open, down to folder 3.6, we have Grand Canyon. I mean, it's grand. I had to take all these shots. So I click and drag over all of those, all 12. And I'll open them just to show you this is how much my camera lens could see. The canyon was so huge. I could only see little bits and sections at a time. Okay, so that's going to be the problem. Now, I love doing these panoramic shots, but again, I will let you decide which one you want to do. But just to show you here, I'll show you with the Grand Canyon. The main emphasis when you are trying to create a panoramic image is when you take a shot, you want to slightly turn your head for the next shot because you want overlapping elements. Notice this tree right here. When I turn my head to the right, I got that tree again. And I turn my head slightly to the right, and I got the tree again. Turn my head to the right, I got the tree again. Now another tree starts to come into view. And then I see it again, and I see it again, and I see it again, and now another tree comes into view. You want these visual landmarks to help your photos to overlap. You can see that tree again, and again, and again. And now I've got this little cliff side coming in, and we see it again. Okay, what I want is more of the peripheral vision of the human eye. I want to see all the way to the right and all the way to the left and the whole canyon in between. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But for time's sake, I'm not going to do this demo. You can try it if you like. If you're a nature enthusiast and you like the Grand Canyon, great, go for it. But I'm going to try it with just the Wizard of Oz. So in order to do that, I need to use another program called Adobe Bridge. You do that right up here. First, if I don't want all these photos showing up, File menu, Open Recent, and clear the recent file list. And then I go to File menu in Photoshop, Browse in Bridge. I'm going to use Adobe Bridge. Adobe Bridge is a companion program that comes along with Photoshop. And you don't really do anything creative here. It's just an organizational tool. So just like Photoshop, I go to Window, Workspace, Essentials. And then if I go to Window, Workspace, it doesn't let me reset it. Okay, this is the Essentials workspace, so that's fine. We'll leave it as it is. Good enough for me. I'm going to click on the left on my desktop. Okay, and right down here, it's divided into different sections for organizational purposes. But what we really need is to look on our desktop. Here's my file folder. I double click to look inside. Here's my Photoshop demos for this video purpose. I double click to look inside. And here's Photoshop Chapter 3. I double click to look inside. Here's folder 3.6, says make only one panoramic image. So again, when I double click to look inside, you have the choice of doing the Alcatraz panorama, the big Grand Canyon panorama, or for my purposes, I'll do the Wizard of Oz. When I double click to look inside there, it's going to show me the 5 photos. Here's the one on the left. I slightly turn my head to the right. So now I have the Tin Man, Dorothy, and the Scarecrow. Slightly turn my head to the right. Now I see that same Scarecrow and now the lion. Slightly turn my head to the right. Now I see the lion and this greenish tree. Slightly turn my head to the right and I see that greenish tree again. I want to see the whole scene. I want to see all 5 of these photos, not all 5 of them as one scene, not 5 individual photos. Okay, I want the whole group standing together. I want the whole Grand Canyon in one big shot. I want the whole island of Alcatraz showing in one big photo called a panoramic. So I'm going to click on the first photo, hold my Shift key and click on the last. That will select all 5 or all 12 of the Grand Canyon or all 4 of Alcatraz, whatever panoramic you want to make. You click on the first photo, Shift click the last. Then here in Adobe Bridge, you go to your Tools menu, down to Photoshop, and load files into Photoshop layers. That's basically asking Adobe Bridge, pick up these 5 files, bring them back into Photoshop, and stack them on top of each other like a deck of cards. When I click that, you might get a little error message saying they need to be added to the queue. And if that is the case, let's see what happens here. There we go. If that is going to come up, would you like to queue this command? You say no. That just meant Adobe Bridge is busy. And you just repeat it again. Tools menu, Photoshop, load files. No, stop doing that to me. Tools menu, Photoshop, load files. There we go. It's a little stubborn, but takes 2 or 3 times and you'll get it. And I'll just zoom out so you can see this. I have that photo stacked on top of the next, on top of the next, on top of the next, like a deck of cards. Okay, I don't want them all on top of each other. I want them side to side to side, a big horizontal image. So again, you click on the first photo and let go. Come down, hold Shift, and click on the last. You got to select all 5 or all 12 or all 4, however many photos you took to make a panoramic. You select all of them. Click the top, Shift click the bottom. Then here in Photoshop, you go to Edit menu, Auto Align My Layers, line them up. You do not have to click anything here except OK. It's going to move those photos left and right. and put them in their proper order, like that. Okay, I'll zoom out even more so you can see that. Now remember that picture of the Orange Coast College library that I took? We were missing a chunk of the sky. We were missing a chunk of the grass. That's what happens with panoramic images. You get this bent edge along the top and typically a bent edge along the bottom. What is also going to happen is when you stack images, you will start to notice the edges of those images, like right here. That light blue background doesn't match this darker one, so I can see the edge of that photo. And if I come around and search around, those ones blended pretty well, but that is not working very well. And that doesn't work very well. I can definitely see the difference between those. Okay, and I don't want to see that. I want people to believe this was just one big, long photograph that I took, like a banner. So again, with all 5 of your layers still selected, I'll zoom in on this area where we can definitely tell the difference. I go to Edit menu again, and I let Photoshop automatically blend the layers. I am making a panoramic image. It moved my images side to side. I want seamless tones, not this hard edge. But I do not want content-aware fill. That's going to ask Photoshop to try and fill in all the blank spaces. You don't want that. Leave that checkbox off. I simply click OK, and now Photoshop is going to erase parts of the layers that it doesn't need. Watch this blue sky right here. And then, boom, it all blends together. So I will see a seamless version of this photo. Essentially what Photoshop built is a puzzle. So if I turn off the bottom 4 layers, this is what Photoshop needed for that first photo. You can see it kind of rips the edge like a rough edge of a puzzle. And then the next photo fits together like a puzzle piece. Then it rips the edge to kind of trick the human eye. And it blends the next photo. Notice it almost ripped right along his shoulder, kind of tricking us. So the next photo blends right along that shoulder. And then the next photo blends in. And the next photo blends in. Okay, what we are missing is a big chunk of the bottom and a big chunk of the top. So like I've shown in the past, if you have a file with multiple layers, you can go to your Layers panel pop-up menu, click that, and come all the way down. Flatten the image. That'll just fill in with the background color of white. We obviously don't want that white to be a part of our final image here, so you have your crop tool. 3rd one down on the left. I click it. And now I just pull the top down. Get rid of all that white right up there. Just pull it just into the image. I'll take the bottom, pull that right up to there. I'll pull the side in just a little bit. Get rid of any white space on the sides. Get rid of any white space on the bottom and the top. And when I hit Enter on my PC or Return on my Mac, I've got a beautiful panoramic shot. Right there. One of the other things that I try to mess with is a little bit of the color, because especially in photos where you don't have control of the lighting situation, lighting or weather can affect your color issues. So I always go to Image Adjustments and Hue and Saturation. Okay, I'll just try this button called Master. Master means every single color in this photo. Reds, oranges, yellows, blues, greens. If I drag the saturation to the right, I can eventually oversaturate the image or undersaturate it, almost turning it to a black and white photo. But I want to punch up a little bit of that fantastical color right there. And when I click OK, I really like that panoramic shot. So if this is the one you did, or if you decided to do Alcatraz, or if you decided to do the Grand Canyon, punch up the colors a little bit. Once you're done, File menu, save a copy. I'll just title this one last name, first name, Panoramic Oz, or Panoramic Alcatraz, or Panoramic Grand Canyon. Always save it to your desktop as a JPEG, and always save them as a high quality JPEG. So here's the only other thing I want to caution you about. Let me close that up. I don't need to save that. And then I'm going to jump back into Browse in Bridge one more time, just to show you a couple things to look out for. So if I come back right here, 3.6, make only one panoramic image, I have these shots of Alcatraz, if that's the one you want to do. It's in San Francisco. It's kind of a dull, kind of overcast day. So you definitely want to punch up the colors on that one. But what you might notice here as well, I don't know why I'm getting that bar, is that I had kind of a dirty lens when I was taking these photos. So you might see these little dark spots on the photos. Here's a couple of smudges right there. Here's a big smudge right there on the photo. If you see those little spots, touch them up with your spot healing brush, literally for a spot. So I'm going to do one more. Click, shift click, Tools, Photoshop, load files into Photoshop layers. Okay, it's going to stack them up like a deck of cards. You click, shift click, and again, it's edit, auto align my layers, and you simply click OK. Now when I zoom out, you can see it move them side to side to side, and we can really see the edge of every single photo, which doesn't look good. So with all your layers still selected, edit again, auto blend those layers. You're making a panoramic. You want seamless tones, not these hard lines, but don't try to fill in the bottom. Leave that off. When I click OK, that's going to blend these edges together into one nice smooth shot of Alcatraz right there. Once you are done, you go to the pop-up on your layers panel again, flatten out the image, and take your crop tool, third one down. You just want to pull that down. Crop out any of this ugly white space. A little bit off the sides right there and right there. And I hit return. But again, this is kind of a cold, overcast day, and I've got these weird smudges from the camera lens. So when you see those, and you will on Alcatraz, you take the fourth tool down, spot healing brush. I could just click and drag over that, click and drag over a few little weird spots in the water if I don't think they need to be there. Here's a couple of other smudges up in the sky. I just want to spot those out, literally, spot healing. If I don't like that bird, take it out. No big deal. Here's a couple of spots over here above the prison I want to get rid of. There's a dark smudge in the water right there. So photo retouching is really, really basic nowadays. Just look for any weird, unsightly little splotches here. And I think that looks pretty clean. Didn't take that long. But again, I don't like the color. So if you have an image that's kind of dull, kind of washed out, there's two things you can do with that. Image adjustments, levels. Levels will read the different levels of value. It breaks down your photos into 3 levels. Your darks, your midtones, and your brights. Okay? This has a lot of dull gray values. You just follow the spike down. There's a lot of dull gray. It's kind of overcast. Doesn't have a lot of shadow. So what I'm going to do is ignore the bar on the bottom. You want the bar on the top. You can slide the black over and add deeper shadows for more contrast. Take the brights and brighten up the day right there. Make it a little more sunny. Okay, there we go. Here's my preview. Here's before when we got this cold fog rolling over. Here's after by pulling in brighter highlights, deeper shadows. Adds a little more clarity to the scene, which I like. I click OK. Now if I want a little more color to it, there is some green in this, but it's kind of dull. It was kind of trapped in all that fog. Image adjustments again. Hue and saturation like I showed before. If you are fine with some of the colors of the water, you don't want to change that, don't have it on master. Master means every color. I want to adjust the greens and the yellows here. So I'm going to go to the greens, increase the saturation. You can see how much green is in there. I'm just going to pull it over until it starts to look kind of radioactive, and I'll back that off. Maybe punch up some of the yellows in there. Right in there, we'll bring a little more yellow into the plants. That looks good. There's a little bit of red on the roof line, so I can target the reds and saturate just a little bit because there's also red in the rocks. But I like the blue how it is. I click OK, and there's my panoramic of Alcatraz. If you decide to do the Grand Canyon, use those same techniques. If you zoom out and you see a few more spots, take your spot healing brush, get rid of a few more of these little unsightly spots from my dirty camera lens, and you know the routine. File menu, save a copy, always set it as a JPEG, always on your desktop. Excuse me. Again, you only have to do one. So I'll leave that up to you, whether it's the Wizard of Oz or Alcatraz or the Grand Canyon. But that's how you make panoramic images here in Photoshop.